Borada, everybody, good morning. Croeso, welcome to Scrutiny today. Today we are looking at the recommendations relating to the provision of day opportunities in Paris. Before we come on to that, have we got any apologies? Please carry on.
Yes, Chair, we've got apologies received from County Councillors Jacob Berriman, Richard Church, David Thomas, David Selby, committee members, County Councillors Chris Walsh, Ange Williams, Carl Lewis, Little Brighouse, Benjamin Breeze, and Josie Ewing, and Councillor Alwyn Evans will be leaving at 12 p.m. And we have apologies from Officers Sharon Powell, Head of Children's Services, and Pamela Ayer.
Okay, thank you. Have we managed to see whether those participants who are in the lobby have come in?
Yes, so I can see Carol, Councillor Carol is in the meeting now.
Brilliant, that's great. Okay, declarations of interest. Does anyone work closely with the current provision that is around or is a member of any of the third sector or third party organisations that relate to this? Councillor Gareth.
Yeah, I'm a trustee of the Built Community Support, and it is mentioned in the confidential papers. So I need to declare an interest.
That's fine. I don't see any conflict there as long as you've declared it. Any others? No. Okay. Any disclosure to make party whips? Nope. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is work program. We're going to shift that and juggle the agenda around a bit and move that to the end. But that is there on live for people to see what we've got up and coming. So we'll move straight on to item number 5, and I'd like to welcome Councillor Shan, Nina Davis, the director, Sharon Fruin as the head of service, and Jackie Pugh as the finance officer. Sorry, Jackie, I'm not haven't got your full title in front of me. But welcome to Scrutiny. Thank you for coming today. And Councillor Shan, if I can hand over to you, please, to introduce this paper. This is the paper that is in the public setting. There are some aspects of this which are confidential in nature, which we will consider and then consider to move into a private setting for those aspects. But the overall strategic part of the paper is in a public setting. And on that note, I'll hand over to you please, Councillor Shan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Amanda. Can you all hear me okay? My signal's not brilliant today. That's good, that's good. Shout at me if, wave at me if it goes. I'm not going to take long to introduce this. This is the long-awaited report and recommendations from the Day Opportunities Review, which also included the engagement sessions that we held at the end of 2023 and 2024. And a lot of people are keen to really hear this, so I'm not going to take long. For me, it's a really important report because it really focuses on building community resilience. And I think that's better for all of our well-being and our being able as a service to focus resources according to what the need is, and also to delay escalation of need as soon as possible, get in there with early work and prevention to support people's well-being as early as possible. So I look forward to hearing the discussions and the questions that you might level at us, and I'll hand over to Sharon now.
Thank you, Councillor Shan. Sharon, I understand you have a presentation to share with us. Is that able to be shared on the screen?
Yes, absolutely. So, yes, Borough Pawb, my name's Sharon Fruin, I'm the Head of Adult Services, and as already discussed, I'm here to take us through the recommendations of the DAOPS provision paper in Paris. I'll just share my screen. I'll get my slideshow up, sorry.
We can see your screen, but yeah, yes, great. Great, that's all there. Thank
Yeah,
you.
great. Thank you, Chair. So just to be clear, that the purpose of the paper is to describe a remodeling of the review, the outcomes of the engagement that has happened and the suggested remodeling of the provision. And I thought it'd just be useful just to outline what day opportunities are. So they're all activities or services that support the health and well-being of adults with care and support needs. And they're usually summarised into two discrete services, such as day services, which are building-based, and day centres, which are building-based, and day services, which are more community-focused. That's not to say that there isn't community access in the day centres, because there absolutely is, and the majority of the time people spend in the community. So currently, as you can see on the right-hand side, we've got a diagram of our current provision, and that consists of 4 older persons day centres, 6 learning disability day centres, and then there's a range of externally commissioned services in the community. So through the engagement and the development of this paper, we have created a vision statement. And as you can see, that vision statement on the screen there is that we will have Powys as a place which supports people to build healthy and rewarding lives with participation in all aspects of community and society, and that day opportunities will meet individual needs and personal outcomes through a wide range of social, work and leisure opportunities, supporting people to utilise their own assets and those of the community. And the focus is on encouraging health and well-being and living independently, whilst also acknowledging the valuable role that day occupation provides for respite for carers. At this point, it's probably worth noting that since COVID, we've seen dwindling numbers of people attending day services and people choosing to do different things for their day occupation. So a lot more people spending time in the community, wanting to do individual activities or small discrete groups of activities with small groups of people, and really focusing on social and leisure activities, and most of the time people using the day service bases as just that, a base where they come in the morning and majority of the time go out into the community to access activities from those bases. So there's been a real change in the direction and usage of the services. So the other things that we've considered, as well as the engagement, which I'll come on to after this, but it's important to set the scene. We've got certain strategic and local drivers, but the strategic drivers are in the shape of our Future Generations Act, the Social Services and Wellbeing Act. There's a Learning Disability Strategy for Wales, and an Improving Lives programme, and other key documents. And the premise of those are a focus on focusing on independent individual outcomes for people, community engagement, community inclusion, and a more personalised approach to day occupation, focusing on people's strengths and independence, and creating resilience, and helping people to live longer, healthier. So locally, that ties into our local drivers around sustainable Powys, our joint area plan, the population needs assessment, the social model for health, our early help and prevention collaborative, and the frailty model of care. So those are all the things that have influenced the design of the new model and the things that we've taken into account. Again, many of the underlying principles around person-centred, outcome-focused, strength-based support are carried through in these and local drivers as well. So the engagement took place over 34 public events. It was very well attended, and we had Sorry, I just need to move my screen because it's covering my notes. Thank you. Sorry. There was 34 public events, 472 attendees. There were online surveys with 472 responses, which was a huge response rate. 79 of those were in easy read, and we were keen to make sure that the information was accessible as possible. The 34 public events was a mixture of existing people who access services, voluntary organisations, other community representatives, family members, local members attended some of them. And I think they were a really vibrant discussion, and a lot of the detail you'll find if you want more detail are in the appendices, where there are some case studies. And through the engagement, we also had a mapping exercise where we mapped the current opportunities, as well as the statutory services available. We also mapped the current opportunities within the community. As you can see there were 192 services that offered day occupation across the county, a really vibrant range of opportunities across the county. I know Councillor Sean's got a hand up and wants to come in.
Councillor Sean?
Yeah, sorry, just very briefly, I think that might be a slight error. I
Oh.
think the 34 public events brought 357 attendees, and the 472 figure is just the online survey response figure. I think
sorry.
maybe a little bit of a typo, and it's been added to that part by
Typed.
mistake.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, sorry, apologies for that. There was also one of the things I didn't mention in the public events that we were supported by Credi to raise the profile of the events and encourage carers to come forward and share their experiences and opinions with us as well. And there's a little mind cloud on the left-hand side, which pulls out some of the key themes of those events, and it was focusing around day opportunities, support, community, people, centres, access, services, and lots of other things. And I'll go into that in a bit more detail next. So the key findings from the engagement events were that people generally wanted more variety. They wanted more opportunities to socialise, access groups of shared interests, rather than maybe being in an environment with people that they didn't have much in common with. They wanted opportunities weekend and evenings. They wanted to know. Sorry, did somebody say something?
I can't see.
No. I'll continue. They wanted more information about what's on offer. A lot of people coming forward saying that they weren't sure what was going in the community. They weren't sure what they could access, and what activities were available, and they weren't sure where to go for that information. They wanted more group opportunities, where they could come together and create almost a community of interest where they could spend time with people with similar interests. They wanted a point of access, as I said, somewhere where they could go and where individuals could express kind of the things that they were looking for, some of the things that were important to them, and be matched with activities. What was important was having the right environment for support, the appropriately skilled staff, and there was some comments around having some workforce development, more training for apprentices, and opportunities to support people, but also about how do people increase their opportunities in the workplace, either through training or volunteering experiences, or being able to access work experience. So there was a real key theme around employment and the need to increase those types of opportunities for people. And you'll see some quotes there from people and saying that we need someone to tell us where to go, someone to tell us how do we get help, someone who knows what's going on. We need inclusion in the community and community places being used and being open to people. That was another key theme that came through, was that actually there was an opportunity to do more joint working with leisure and culture to maximise use of buildings, but also with the communities themselves. And actually there were really good accessible environments within the communities at a local level that we could make more use of, and that actually we could build that community capacity at a local level depending on what was important to the people in that community. So that's a brief outline of the engagement, and more, like I said, more detail around that is in the appendices. So my final slide is actually where we came to. So from the engagement, considering the national and local drivers and the legislation, we've come up with a new model of support. So trying to move away from that segregated institutionalized model, which can create dependencies, to a model which is more flexible, focused on increasing independence, resilience, and community connectedness. So the model focuses on new skills, promotion of independence and well-being, and acknowledges that people may move throughout the model of support as their needs change due to life events or just change in circumstances. So there's also a need to make sure the model is fluid in the way that people can access support, and that the tiers don't become a barrier. So there's no resistance to people getting the support they need, the right support at the right time. So you'll see that it's broken down into 3 tiers. There's preventative support. So acknowledging that the more that we support people to remain well, healthy, engaged, the more that we support people to achieve their aspirations and utilize their skills, the longer they'll be able to remain living healthy and well in their community and not need statutory intervention. Tier 1 focuses on in the engagement, people told us they weren't aware of what was available for them. So the focus of the prevention tier is around providing really robust and informative information, advice and assistance to facilitate independent access to activities. So this level would be primarily focusing around third sector support, community provisions. It includes voluntary and paid employment and the employment offer, encouraging independence. And like I said, not creating a dependency, looking at improving people's life skills. So the personalised support element is around where individuals have their outcomes met, still within the community, but could be with bespoke support, building on their strengths. People told us that they wanted more flexible support, they wanted more choice, they wanted activities at on a weekend and evenings. So this tier of support looks at creating opportunities across the whole spectrum of, Monday to Sunday, any time of the day, focuses on using mainstream social, leisure and employment support and access of utilising direct payments, for instance, and domiciliary care to ensure people are doing the activities of their choice, but also creating those communities of interest where people come together with shared interests to experience things together instead of in isolation, but within the communities. That's, you know, that the whole crux of that is having the flexibility and the choice to use your support at a time that's right for you, doing the things that are important to you. So it's very individualized. And then the specialist tier is really for those primarily with very complex needs that cannot. I think one of the ways we describe it is needing to use building-based services because you cannot access or struggle to access anything else in the community. So that doesn't mean that you won't access the community, but it will be with specialist support. So the feedback told us that the engagement feedback told us that people value safe and reliable environments and having access to appropriately skilled and trained staff. So like I said, that tier is about providing support for individuals with complex needs, and it doesn't preclude them from accessing the community, but predominantly it will be building based. And that is the end of my presentation.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sharon. Just to let you all know, I'm having some IT issues today in that things keep dropping in and out, and I have no idea why, because it's usually absolutely fine. So if I do drop out, I'm hoping that it's not going to be when we move into confidential, because otherwise I'm going to really struggle getting back in. But Gareth, just to put you on alert. Uh, Nina, do you want to add anything to Sharon's presentation? And thank you, Sharon, for that. It's a good to have the context and the overview and to see the ethos behind what you're proposing to move to. So Nina, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think just for me, the really exciting part of this is, that investment into employment support. I think this is an area that I'm really pleased to see and to bring forward to you, because I think that support for people across the county is going to be really, really important, and is something that is, and alongside the local area coordinators as well that are being proposed. So the engagement was telling us that people want to know where to go, how to get there, etc. So to have dedicated positions to be supporting and enabling people to do that. So I'm really positive. So pleased to be putting those forward as part of the new model for you today. Thank you.
Thank you. So members, we're going to just start some questions now. I just want to make a couple of points to start with. First of all, thank you for bringing this as a proposal. There are some really interesting and interesting changes in ethos, which sound very positive. I don't want to start things on a negative setting, but because I do want to make the point that there's been a huge amount of work that's gone into this, and it's no easy task going to engage across a service which is across the whole county, involves many individuals with such varying needs, many different organisations, and having to try and get input from 60 odd councillors, etc. So please don't think that what I'm about to say is criticising the huge amount of work that you have put into this. However, for us to scrutinise this effectively, it is very, very difficult because it involves so many different localities, and as keen and as passionate as we all are about adult services in Powys, with the best will in the world, the committee members on here today do not have all of the local knowledge and awareness to be able to ensure that we're asking questions that might be pertinent to each different locality. So I think it's a very difficult job for us to scrutinise this effectively. There's also been a huge amount of delay, and that, is for some valid reasons, but I think we do need to have a bit of an explanation for the public today as to why the engagement exercise started in 2023 and it's taken this amount of time to come to it, and also how you're going to address anything that may have changed in that period. because, you know, it's been quite a long time, and how you're going to go back out to ensure that you capture any real change in themes. So that's a couple of points I want to start with. And the other point is, I just would also like to understand, you know, what your plan is to engage between, given the delay, is to how you're going to ensure that local members have the opportunity to feed into this if they've got any concerns or clarification questions. So those are sort of three overarching points from me. And I don't know how you want to address those. Nina, did you want to come back on it from your perspective?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. And just pick up on a couple of those, if I may. Firstly, apologies, this work has been delayed. We had hoped to bring this to you in the autumn of last year. There's been quite a number of reasons why the work has been delayed. As you recognise yourself, this is a huge area of work. The engagement concluded in 2024. And the scope is very significant, and rightly so. We were very ambitious about what we wanted to do. We wanted to look at the community, the local area coordination. We wanted to look at the employment opportunities, etc. So the extent, the scope of the work was very significant, but there has been staff absences, which has significantly impacted on it. So we do apologise for the delay, and note and accept that we had hoped to bring this before you in the autumn of last year. In terms of the model that's been presented to you this morning, it is a county-wide model. And, you know, we're asking you as a scrutiny to look at the strategic overview and be a critical friend to that, etc. So there's absolutely no way or expectation that you as a scrutiny committee could have knowledge and in-depth knowledge of every single locality across the county. So we accept that. But, you know, you have a role, isn't it, over the strategic oversight in terms of proposals and models which have been brought forward to you today. So a note that yes, we don't expect you to have that individual kind of detailed locality knowledge.
Can I come back on that
Of
just
course.
really? So I know what you're saying in terms of our role is a strategic one, and I do agree, but I think that there's, for us to be thorough, it's important that we are assured that local members are able to ask questions and challenge anything that they want to. So that is the reasoning behind my question. I have gone and spoken to a few local members who I know who have decent and good local knowledge of the facilities in their area, and and I'm not going to go into specifics of areas because that's more in the confidential session, but I am aware that there is a couple of mistakes in some parts of the report that are in the confidential briefing. So that they may not be big mistakes, they may not have an impact on the outcomes, but how can you assure us as a scrutiny committee that local members are going to have the opportunity to come and raise those issues with you if they feel that those if I say the word mistake, it may or may not be a mistake. It may be that things have moved on since the engagement exercise. But how can you capture that local intelligence from members going forward before you make a decision and before the cabinet makes a decision on the proposals? Or how can you assure us you can do it? And Sian's nodding as well, so. I don't know who wants to come back on that point first. Sorry, because I know I've interrupted you, Nina, just coming back on that point.
No, happy for Councillor Sian to go first. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Mine's just a brief point, which is, I mean, I'm happy to take, you know, direction guidance on how members would best like to be involved in this. I wrote an email last week to all councillors, letting them know that scrutiny would be looking at the reports today, both the confidential report and the public report, and inviting councillors to contact me if they have any questions or concerns or want to discuss it in any way. That remains an open invitation. Maybe what I could do is follow that up with an encouraging follow-up, just to say if you have any concerns, please do raise them. But I know that Sharon and I have talked about this. I know that Sharon is open to meeting people as well. So please, I don't know if this is sufficient, Councillor Amanda, or whether it's enough, but certainly as a starter for 10, I would say, please do contact us with any
Yeah.
concerns that you've got, especially if you think there are mistakes or errors in the data that we're relying on.
Yeah, I certainly really welcome the ethos behind how you've approached that, Councillor Shan. And I think I just want to be, it's two-way, isn't it? Your door is open, and I think members need a nudge that that is the case. I would like us to make a recommendation from this committee that members are specifically given the instructions on how they access the confidential papers, because we have some new members. We have members who may not have ever had to access confidential papers before. It involves passwords, etc. So I think they need to be given the information on that. And then I think we need to have some consideration on whether or not there is some kind of member development or a member drop-in facility, even through Teams, where they can just there's a rather than them just sending an email, because it might be complex for them to explain it in writing, they can just come and say, oh, it's the report says this, can you just double check that, because I thought that this was in place. So that's what I'm asking. I don't want to take up too much time on this point, because I know we've got loads of other questions on the strategic side of things. But Nina, did you want to come back on that?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And just to note that obviously we had a lot of local councillors involved in the engagement section.
Yeah.
But I know you're aware of that, but I just thought it was worth saying. And Councillor Shan has outlined the contact that she has made with all councillors as well.
Yeah.
And if if an engagement or drop in is recommendation for scrutiny, then absolutely happy to do that. Provide that information so everybody's aware of how to access the confidential papers. Happy to take that away as well, and to offer an opportunity for members to ask questions and make comments. So yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Committee members, have you got any other points on this side of things that you want to make, just on terms of local intel from members and the delay side of things? No. Okay. Right. So we have other questions on the strategic part of things. I don't want to pick on anyone, so if you just want to put your hands up, members, on who's got questions. I know I can't see any hands up. Glenn.
Thanks very much. Just had a question. So in the report, oh dear me, I've lost my page now. There's reference made to some of the sort of barriers and challenges, and in there is noted as one of the challenges is communication and the need to sort of improve how widely information is shared, and that people have awareness of the services on offer in their locality. So I was really interested in the addition of these local area coordinators. I was just wondering whether somebody could give me some narrative on how this interacts with the sort of community connector service, which as I understand it, is delivered through Parvo.
Karen?
Thank you, Councillor Glenn. I think it's a key premise of the whole new model, so there's lots of, you'll be aware, there's lots of different sources of information. We have our assist team, we have DAWIS, we have Info Engine, and lots of local platforms as well, which can be really confusing. And I think sometimes when you're in particular need or isolated, it's really difficult to be able to navigate those things. So the idea is that the coordinators will do just that. They will be overarching, linked to the 5 hubs as you'd expect in the sustainable Paris principles, and they would then connect with the 13 localities via the community connectors, and there is work to do on that model, and what that looks like, what we call it. We'd be looking to involve citizens in developing that model. But the idea is that we have those overarching coordinators that would understand what's going on in their larger geographical area. They would be able to understand where we've got gaps in provision or gaps in opportunities, where we've got embryonic groups wanting to start up, or support groups that are at risk of failing, and support and help guide them through that, and link them with different opportunities for support in becoming more sustainable. They would also feed then into our strategic commissioning cycle and influence what we look at then to commission moving forward, based on that really rich intelligence from a locality level. So they will connect, hopefully, the 5 hubs to the 13 localities, and then inform delivery, but also support the community to grow and develop, and to inform what they want and need at a local level. So it's not us coming in and doing for, or suggesting, or driving communities. It's communities actually from the ground up, and us understanding what that need is, and where we can support and hope and support and fade. So support might, we might help some groups to become more resilient, or to start up, and then we can fade away. So it's a very fluid model, but it's trying to tie it all together and make it a bit more cohesive. And it also links in with the national drivers around social prescribing, and making sure that that we understand what that looks like in Powys, and the national direction of having one info engine rather than several. So they will play a pivotal role in informing those discussions as well.
Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you. I'm really grateful. I mean, I suppose my response is that I think, it sounds as though this role has the potential to have a huge impact in terms of signposting and that sort of locality sort of knowledge. I suppose it just references, is one of the challenges is that, so for instance, the community connector service, it was evident in some areas that there was a sort of lack of awareness. So I'm just sort of bookmarking this as something I'd really like to come back to Scrutiny when we've got a bit more of an idea of how the process is going to work,
Yeah.
and perhaps reviewing what the impact has been over a 6-month or 12-month period, or what have you. I know that some of the work is obviously quite nebulous and difficult to record and report, but I'm just bookmarking that I'd be really interested in how that could be fed back to us as a Scrutiny committee.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, I think it would be helpful if you could quickly talk us through a envisaged scenario of how this would work for a particular group of people, or a particular type of individual, and also these local area coordinators. They are part of your bottom of the triangle in terms of the preventative support. How you are going to measure the success of the prevention that leads to. So how are you going to know whether or not that is where the most significant amount of your resource has gone in, which therefore impacts the specialist services and the personalized support needing to be less resource heavy, and therefore individuals remain more independent, and they have more ownership of what they're doing, and it's much more strengths based. So how are you going to measure that, and can you talk us through an idea of a scenario?
Yeah, sorry, just making a note of all your points, Chair. One thing I wanted to pick up on firstly is that although that role sits at in tier 1, it will influence all of the tiers.
Yeah.
So there will be an exchange of information that we will be collecting around gaps and needs, and it will inform the direction of travel. Some of the things that we're looking at around capturing data will be around number of contacts into assist. I mean, if we've got better information at grassroots level, we'd expect less people to be needing to make contact with us. We'd expect to see less people coming into statutory services and more signposting through those contacts. They'll be sat within our front door, and we'll be measuring how many interactions, how many opportunities there are in the community, how many new opportunities have grown. We're working currently with Social Care Wales around how we capture that qualitative data from people living in Paris. So how do we hear their stories? So that's a work in progress that will sit alongside this modelling. I think Councillor Glyn was alluding to, it's not always easy to measure some of the social value is not easy to measure, but there are some new recognised tools to do that. So we're working with Social Care Wales to understand how we can build that into the new model. And a scenario, I suppose, would be whereas at the moment we may have, I'm just trying to think of off the top of my head, the best scenario to give you. I suppose where we've got people who are coming into contact with us, and we're having a conversation at the front door, maybe around independence and managing to remain living at home. We've got certain areas where we've got repeat themes coming through around basic support, such as support to unpack your shopping, put your bins out, those really daily living kind of tasks that we could actually be identifying if there was a group of people in a collective area that needed that kind of support. We could develop a support service around a support group around that isn't already there. So looking at that individual basis in the community, it could be around you've got a couple of people in a community, so maybe I want to engage. I'm at home. I've been retired. I've recently been unwell. Lost my confidence. Not sure where how to re-engage with the community, or understand where I'm going next, I suppose, in my life. I would have had skills and attributes in my working career that or interests that are really important to me. So, for instance, somebody who worked as in horticulture, for instance, all their lives, has been retired, and like I said, not become isolated because then they've not sure what to do with their time. Actually linking those people up pre-retirement with identifying which local groups there are in the community that they could go and volunteer in, to use some of the skills that they've utilised, they've had in their working career, that actually then would stop them from becoming isolated. They'd be there, creating, supporting a local group. So it could be a local, a community garden or a community orchard. They could go and utilise their skills. They wouldn't be isolated. They'd make new friends. They'd increase their self-esteem, etc., etc. I mean, there's lots of.
I kind of get the picture. I just think that obviously this is the ethos behind the whole thing. I think that a recommendation from us is that we need to see some really clear examples of how this will look in practice, even if they're speculative examples. They're examples that might come to fruition, which would be how these local area connectors are used and how they then will enable someone to receive preventative support. So I'd like to see that as a recommendation, please. Glyn, is there anything else you'd like to follow up on that?
Sorry, separate question. I've just put my hand up to bookmark.
Okay, I'll come back to you then. Councillor Gareth.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Could I ask a question on section 2.6 of the report, which details the number of access, number of days of availability, and the number of attendance pre and post COVID. If my summary is right, there's been a drop of a third of the number of people accessing the service, and that there's been a 30% drop in the number of days available. So would I be right in assuming that the actual number of client days, client hours, etc., is reduced by about 50% since pre-COVID to now? And what's the impact of that on other services that are delivered by the council?
My question was just on that, actually, Councillor
Do you
Amanda.
want to add to your input as well, Glenn?
Yeah, sorry, pardon me. It was just that, Sharon in her presentation said that the numbers accessing these day services are dwindling, and it was just an observation that is not a uniform trend across all the sites. So some sites have seen a drop of sort of 3 or 4. Well, I think that's difficult to describe that as dwindling necessarily. And then one further supplementary, and I hope I'm not sort of muddying the waters here. Oh, actually, no. Perhaps I'll just leave it. And
Is this your question on capacity?
No, it's my question about Havard or Avon and the sort of services that are being delivered out.
I think we'll come back to that in the confidential session on the specific localities. But didn't you have a question on capacity relating to pre-COVID levels and capacity to grow as well? Because I think that ties in with where we're looking at attendance and whether or not it's dwindled or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose it's related to the previous point, isn't it, about our ability to signpost people towards services and all the rest of it, that actually we might have an increase in the number of people who are accessing our services in some way, and do we have the capacity within the localities to deal with a potential increase beyond the pre-COVID levels?
Yeah, is someone able to come back on those 2 points from Gareth and from Glenn?
Hello,
Hi,
thank you.
Hazel.
Hi.
Do you want to just explain your role, Hazel?
So my role is I'm the Senior Manager for Adult Social Care in service delivery. So I have responsibility for a number of the provider services in-house, which include the daytime opportunities. So I've worked with the daytime opportunities pre-COVID and post-COVID. So pre-COVID, they were open 5 days a week, varying numbers across the county, reducing numbers of older people using Brecon and Astragon Lice and Llandrindod. And then post-COVID, we have opened with offers to be full-time in all services. We haven't had the referrals to do that. So the days are set on the numbers of people we've had referrals for. So we are business as usual at the minute. So if those services increased and we had extra referrals, we would reopen those extra days. To date, we haven't had any of that. We've spoken to social workers at length in team meetings around that the facilities are available. So the numbers in learning disabilities have changed because some of the people have deceased and we've got new transitions people through. In older people, we're seeing a difference in the referrals. Does that answer your question?
Partly.
What was the other part you needed,
Well,
Councillor
no,
Gareth?
I just said it was an estimate. I thought it was an estimated reduction of 50% of actually client hours, client days. And I just wondered, have you got any perception of that? Do you have any records around that?
We have the records of people who attended pre-COVID and the people who attended post-COVID, and we've tracked where all of those individuals have gone who haven't returned.
Yeah, but I'm just looking at the number of actual client days accessed. I'm not sure. I don't need an answer now, but
okay, because my maths wouldn't probably be as quick as yours to answer that at the moment.
Okay.
So I might have to take a rain check and come back to you on that percentage, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's right. Now, the second half of my question is what's the impact being on other services that we deliver of that reduction?
Yeah, so we've spoken to the senior managers of the assessment teams, and they're not seeing an increase through Care Practice Forum and their assessments and requirements for an increase in domiciliary care reflecting the people not attending day services. So they're not seeing an increase in sit-in services or people asking for more opportunities. And we're not having that as a theme from our community connector reports either.
Okay, thank you.
Why do you think that is?
I think people are having different conversations in terms of strengths-based conversations around and trying to use people's assets, families, communities. There's people are using communities different, maybe a different cohort of people, different expectations of. It's a difficult one, isn't it, when I don't speak to some of those people, but we're not seeing that. But the social workers are having different conversations around that. And some of the diagnostic work that we had feedback wasn't that the people were looking for a day centre.
No. But it's the potential and the opportunity that they're looking for. If they're looking for an activity, or they're looking for a social opportunity, or they're looking for a training opportunity, how do we capture that there may be more capacity needed in terms of resource hours? Sharon, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I think the point you make, Chair, is pertinent. I think that is exactly why we've seen people choosing different things, that they actually wanting a more social element. They don't particularly want to come into a day service building base where, you know, they'll be with people that they don't know. They're actually staying within their local communities. And that's why we wanted to enhance that tier 1 offer. To make sure that we understood it and that we can support the community to continue to develop as it has been, but also identify where we need to put our resources strategically to make sure that there is that capacity and the resilience in the community to respond, because predominantly, even when people are coming into the building bases, they're wanting to go into the community. They're not wanting to use those buildings. And I just wanted to come back in, and my hand went up predominantly to answer. We have done some mapping around future need. So we track those young people known to us, and what kind of that trajectory will be. Those figures are in the paper, are in the appendices, and we've also looked at the predicted need, and it's not an exact science because it's census data, and obviously people move in and out of counties, and we've got to allow for that. But actually, based on the census data of if we've looked at the current population and what percentage of the current population attend building-based day services or day services, and then looked at the census information to tell us what the growth of the population will be, and used the same percentage to work out how many people that we would be needing to provide support for in the future, and that's over a 10-year period, and the future modelling and the option that we'll go on to discuss would accommodate that capacity.
Okay, thank you. Members, have you got any more questions? I think, Carol, you've got a question on volunteers.
Yes. My question is regarding the volunteers. Are they going to be trained? Are they going to be police checked? If they're working in the day centres or in the community, my worry is that we're going to be relying on volunteers all the time. And I am quite concerned about that, to be honest with you. I'd like a bit more information on all this, please.
Karen?
I suppose just to be clear, that the Councillor Carroll, the volunteering opportunities that I was talking about in the tiered model was around people creating opportunities for volunteering as a way to increase skills and a way into the work environment, into the workplace. I acknowledge that actually in tier 1 we would be there would be use of volunteers within the third sector, etc., and the community offer, absolutely. And there we have having these conversations a lot over the last few years, especially post-COVID, where volunteer fatigue is absolutely evident, as it was in our own staff group, as you'd expect. And we'd expect those volunteering services to operate as they ordinarily do, with the necessary checks and training pertinent and required for the role that they're doing. And that will depend on the role that they're doing. It will be different for various roles, but we'd absolutely expect people to be trained and checked where they need to be. It is something that we'll be needing to work on in developing through the local area coordination model and with our colleagues in the third sector to understand how we encourage more people into volunteering. And there's lots of barriers around it at the moment with the cost of living crisis, etc., and general fatigue and increasing caring responsibilities of people because of the ageing population. So it's not an easy fix, but what we're hoping is that by actually having more refined ways of identifying where a volunteering opportunity is, and identifying people who've got the skills. So especially people where there's a dual reward, so where people are retiring, actually being able to utilize their skills so that they don't become isolated and lonely. We're hoping that we can increase the volunteer pool, but I absolutely understand that is not to be relied on and is extremely difficult.
Oh, Gareth, can you put yourself on mute, or someone mute Gareth, please? Yeah, I'll just to follow up on that then, because obviously you are going to be quite reliant on some volunteer-led groups. How can you talk us through how you're going to mitigate against the concerns that you've alluded to, given the how stretched they are, and you know, how are you going to address the fact that a lot of them don't charge a fee? So how do they get the support that they need so that they don't keep being overly stretched, and it discourages people from volunteering, doesn't it? So what's within these proposals to mitigate these concerns?
I think that's part of the model that we'd be looking at developing through the local area coordination model, understanding where those groups are, what those individual concerns are, and providing them, you know, with that bespoke support to ensure their sustainability. It'll be different for each group. Their concerns and issues will be different, and also making sure that they're connected to the right support through the voluntary sector support networks that are available to make sure that they're getting the right advice around their groups. There's also something around making sure that we're linking people in with the existing wellbeing offer that is across the county through our leisure services. So where there's issues, you know, for volunteers, their own health and wellbeing, and making sure they're connected in that respect. It's an area that we need, you know, of development for that model.
I think as Councillor Glynn used the word before, it's really difficult for us to be assured on a lot of this because it is so hazy and nebulous, and until the model is, I guess, embedded or starts to become more clear, it's very difficult for us to know whether or not you are envisaging putting in, or for us to be assured that you're envisaging putting in the support that's needed for volunteer groups. So I think we need to make that as an observation, really. Thank you, Councillor Carroll. I've got a question on how you've worked out community transport, and without going into specific areas because that's more in the confidential session. But how have you gone about ensuring that you've mapped out any not just current transport that would be needed, but if you're looking to increase capacity and change the ethos of the model, that community transport is going to be sufficient, and that there is enough resource there, and again that ties in with third sector groups as well, doesn't it? So how have you gone about that side of things? Oh, you're on mute, Sharon.
Sorry, I couldn't get off mute.
Okay.
Sorry, tech issues. My screen keeps going black.
That's
Apologies.
okay.
So there's already existing work happening through the Community Connector service that has mapped out the community transport, etc. That this, I know it's going to sound vague again, but these are exactly the things that we would be looking at that locality level through the connectors and the local area coordinators. I mean, we've got our own transport resources that are attached to the day services that Hazel could provide more information around. Obviously, many people are in receipt of mobility component of their PIP that they'd be using their own mobility vehicles for. But we would just continue with the there isn't anything I suppose in the model that has changed the kind of areas of provision except for that I'm clumsily trying to say that the existing transport links would remain.
Would remain. But are the
and be
existing
sustained.
transport links sufficient for if capacity increases, because you're hoping that more people will maybe access some of the, preventative opportunities?
Well, the preventative opportunities being within their own locality.
Right, okay. Okay. All right. I don't know whether I'm any clearer on that. But I understand that you have mapped it out. Can you just explain to us about the task and finish working group that's in the I know that's in the confidential papers, but I don't think that that's a confidential part of it, and it was part of your how you've engaged, etc. And there's I know there was a different organisations on there. Can you just explain what the role of that task and finish working group was, and how that has fed into the proposals that you've come up with? I'm just trying to. Just... Yeah, I can't find the specific appendix what it is, but there's a reference to a task and finish working group that was set up. Or maybe it's supposed to be set up. It's going to be set up.
Apologies, Councillor Amanda. I'm just trying to find the reference point of it, and I'm not sure if it was the task and finish group internally that was set up to review the engagement results.
It's in Appendix 1, Work and Leisure Task and Finish Group membership. It says it's on Appendix 1 in the confidential papers, but it says there was members from PCC, Paris People First, Accessibility Paris, Commissioning, Credi, Older People's Forum, Paris Towns Councils. I'm not sure what the group. So I think it's to do with where you're talking about co-production. It says co-production principles have underpinned this work with a task and finish group set up to include a wide range of stakeholders. I just want to know, what that task and finish group has done and how often they've met and how they fed into this.
I'd have to come back to you. Can I just find that and come back to you?
Okay.
Sorry, Councillor Amanda.
It's a wider, yeah, if you could, that would be great. But it's just, I think the words co-production are used quite a lot, and we just need to have a firm example of how that's happened in practice, so that we can be assured that, the third sectors have fed into this, and it's, it's not top down, it's bottom up. Nina?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just while Sharon's having a look, I know that there's been work as part of the Regional Partnership Board Work, Leisure and Learning work stream. So I think perhaps a reference might be to task and finish groups and engagement groups around the Work, Leisure and Learning work stream, which this work has been very much a part of under that. Would that be right, Sharon? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I guess the question still is though, is how have those groups fed in to this other than the initial engagement exercises where you went out and met people? Has there been any other further communications with them and meetings with them? Have they seen your different options, and what's been the level of engagement since the engagement exercise? Councillor Shan's got her hand up. Shan?
Thank you, Councillor Mandry. Yeah, it's not to answer your last question, which Sharon will obtain the information for you from. I don't know what's happened since the engagement, but during and pre the engagement, there was a task and finish group. I was part of it, which did involve a wide range of community organisations as well as officers, and that was about designing the engagement process effectively. If I recall correctly, that was quite a long time ago, and it was about designing the engagement process and making sure that third sector and other organisations we work with was part of designing that engagement process. So it might be that the paper that you've read where it says that, because I think that's mentioned. I think it might be in that. I think it's in that workstream report that you referenced, and that's where the work to prepare the work, leisure and learning workstream report, and I think that's where the work of the task and finish group is outlined.
Okay.
But Sharon will come back.
No, that's what I was just checking in. It is the work, leisure and learning work stream that where that, as you said, Councillor Sean, where that preparation and design around the engagement took place.
So, okay, so if that's the case, then in terms of co-production, the process between if cabinet makes a decision to go with the recommended option, how does co-production happen going forward in terms of the process?
I suppose there would be that initial engagement to feedback the outcome of this process, and then there is the continued redesign of the different options. So the employment support, the local area coordinators, and the framework around the community connectors, that model would need designing, and that's where we take it back to those groups to make sure to get their input in the definitive elements of the model once agreed.
Okay, and when you say take it back, in what kind of setting or forum, how will that be assured that they can have good time to feed into it?
I think that would depend on the individuals involved and their communication styles. So it'll be different for different groups. So predominantly we take it back to the Live Well Forum and the Age Well Forum to engage with those groups and maybe bring that task force back together. I've colleagues just informed me that we are right. It was the Task Force group that they designed the survey and helped with the engagement and facilitated the engagement sessions, such as Credi helped us facilitate some of those and helped with our comms and advertising. The group met 3 times to develop that engagement work stream, and we take it back to that same group of people and then widen it out. I suppose we do a stakeholder analysis for each of the work stream models and understand what that would look like then. It would be face to face. We'd be the materials would be sent out in an accessible format with sufficient time for people to understand them and formulate ideas and opinions, and then come back and we do some appreciative inquiry and some open learning around what's worked previously for that delivery model, what hasn't worked, and what would good look like next moving forward? How would we know if we've been successful, and identify all of those things and then build that into the design of the those elements of the service provision moving forward.
So I think that it would be helpful, and perhaps this is a recommendation, if that process going forward with co-production is clearly mapped out in term, not that so that it's rigid, but so that that it's formalized, and that we can be, I'd like the assurance to see that in as part of the report, really, that is mapped out, and that the same kind of input that they had into framing the engagement exercise, they then carry on that ethos, and so they don't feel that they've been left behind, specifically because of the delay as well. I think they will need that assurance as well. So that I'd like to make that as a recommendation, please, unless any committee members have got any concerns or additional comments they want to make on that.
And I think because we would be looking at designing specific elements, that stakeholder identifying who are the stakeholders,
It
it'll
would
be
vary,
wider
wouldn't
than that
it?
task and finish group.
Yeah.
You know, because
I
we're
was just going to say it might, there might be new stakeholders as well.
absolutely.
I was just going to say Slice might be a stakeholder that's interested in this as well, especially when it comes to you learning as you're going along and the feedback that they're getting as an organisation.
Yeah, and I think that it would link into the work that we're doing with Social Care Wales as well, around hearing the person's voice, around the quality and direction of travel as well. So we could weave that into that work stream as well, so that we're actually setting, that, as I said, what does good look like? How would we know if it's been successful? So we've got not just the quantitative data coming forward, but the qualitative data as well.
Yes, yeah. Okay, thank you. And then I think final question, unless other members have got any questions on this before we go into the reasons why you want to go into confidential session, is could you just talk us through the process timeframes as to what will happen once Cabinet has made a decision on the way forward, and what, when will things start in terms of inputting a new proposal, and when do you hope it to be in place?
So we've mapped out implementation plan, and we're just working through that with our colleagues in comms. So we'd start straight away. There's obviously key messages to people already involved in services and staff, and then we would identify the work streams around the delivery of the different elements and new elements of the service, and then map out the key milestones and the timelines for each of those work streams, so that the work would start straight away. Obviously, we've got certain restrictions around how we engage with staff and existing organisations that we need to adhere to. But I would suspect that we would have there will be some areas of delivery that will come online sooner than others, because we can start making those changes straight away. But it would be autumn for the big implementation.
Okay, and the re-engagement side of things, that would start straight away, would it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you. Any other questions from members before we go into confidential? No. Okay. Can you just give us a overview as to why part of what your recommendations are recommended to be restricted and to go into confidential session?
Yeah, I'm happy to come in and do that, Chair. So categories 1, 2 and 3 of the Access to Information Procedure rules apply to the following item. And the public interest test, the view is that to make this information public would disclose information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person or people, including the authority. So we ask you to take those into account, and when you're considering whether to go and to exclude public from the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Is there not also an employee impact as well?
Yep, people,
Okay.
yes.
People, okay. Carrie Ann, I can see that you've got your hand up.
Yes, Chair. Sorry. Could we please just consolidate the public scrutiny recommendations? So the recommendations that have just been made publicly, could we just
Oh, okay.
go over those? Because then we can make sure that they're kept separately from private
Yeah,
later on.
That's absolutely fine. Do you want to just run through what recommendations you've got from us?
Yeah. So I've got number 1, members are given specific instructions for how to access confidential papers going forward. Need to see clear examples of how this would look in practice.
Go back onto that one. The members
Oh.
also it's to consider the opportunity for members to either have following that is to members to either have a drop-in or a member development in order to raise any concerns and queries that they've got once they've considered everything.
Okay, thank you. Noted that. Number 2, need to see clear examples of how this would look in practice and how these local area connectors are used and how they enable someone to receive preventative support.
Yeah.
And then 3, co-production process going forward to be clearly mapped out, not rigid but formalized.
Yeah. Anything else, members? Gareth, did you have anything that you noted? No. Gareth, you're on mute.
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, I've got one around the having assurance around the availability of volunteers and community transport services on an ongoing basis for sustainability.
Yeah.
Then you've got the one about the co-construction.
That's the one that they've just said, isn't it? About mapping it out. Okay. I think
and then the one around having the timeline as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Okey-doke. Do those all make sense to you, Sharon, Nina, Sian, Hazel?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Thank
Right,
you, Chair.
so we've heard the reasons why they're proposing that the rest of it is restricted in confidential session. Members, do you have any concerns about that? If not, could I have a proposer and a seconder, please?
I'm happy to propose, Chair.
Yeah, and seconder.
I'll second.
Thanks, Carol. Okay, is that what you need, Carrie Ann, in order to take us into confidential session?
Yep, that's perfect. I will move us across now.